Not everyone can agree on everything, and that's certainly true when it comes to roller coasters. There's always those rides that some people love and some people hate. Everyone is affected differently by different aspects of each ride, so stuff like that is just bound to happen. It is great though that people have such varying opinions for so many different things, because if everyone thought the same way, the world would be a very boring place. So here are those controversial coasters. I should also note that I was planning on making this video a little while back, but then Airtime Thrills uploaded essentially the same exact video, so I decided to put this off a little bit. I also won't be including any coasters that he had in his video in order to create a unique take, so if there's a coaster that you think should probably be on here that isn't, it was probably in his video. At the number 20 spot, we have Zeus at Mount Olympus Water and Theme Park. Zeus is a 60-mile-an-hour 1997 CCI Woody, a company known for getting mixed responses from their coasters. I don't think that anyone is questioning the existing layout of Zeus. It's full of pops of ejector airtime and CCI's signature crushing laterals, not to mention that it's one of the best paced rides in the world. There are just two main problems people tend to have with Zeus. First of all, it is known for being a bit of a rough ride, just like all the other coasters at Mount Olympus. The park doesn't have the largest budget, so in the past there hasn't been much money to upkeep the ride as would have been preferred. But over the past couple of years, there's actually been a lot of track work being done, and most people that ride nowadays don't complain about the roughness. But the other major complaint about Zeus is really something that can't be fixed, and that's the short length. Zeus is just 2,900 feet long, and the train absolutely tears through it, leaving some people wanting just a bit more. It might have been better to build Zeus in a different part of the park, but I mean, what are you gonna do? As for me, I haven't had the chance to ride Zeus yet, but I think that Zeus would easily crack my top 25 because how it rips through that layout. And even if it is rough, I'm not really bothered by rough-ridden coasters. Heck, the only place I rode Boss was in the back row, and it's one of my favorite coasters. Coming in at number 19 are the 1976 Demon clones from Six Flags Great America and California's Great America. Back in 1976, Marriott, the company most known for their hotels, opened two amusement parks, both named Marriott's Great America, in the Chicago and San Francisco areas. Both parks had an aerodynamics custom looping coaster named Turn of the Century. The names were both later changed to the Demon. They were the first coasters to invert riders 4 times, and these both still operate today to mixed reception. Much like many aero loopers, the ride gets many complaints about the roughness, which definitely isn't helped by those restraints. Rides back then were not made using computers, meaning that not everything was as precise and perfectly designed as it is today, creating some rough patches throughout the ride. Another big complaint is that the ride is just simply boring. Despite those 4 inversions, much of the ride is just spent meandering around slow turns. I mean, you can't really argue with those complaints. The layout is really nothing compared to what companies like Intamin are making today. Many people do also recognize the ride for being just a fun, relaxing ride with some fantastic scenery. It has some sort of charm with that theme that you won't really find on rides that are built nowadays. Plus, you gotta love that signature music that's kept throughout all these years. Like Zeus, I've not been lucky enough to get on this thing yet. Well, actually I had the chance to ride it just last year, but I had limited time, so I chose to experience other things like Max Force over Demon. But anyway, I really have no idea what to think of Demon, because out of the 2 other aero loopers I've ridden, I hated one and loved the other. Taking the 18th spot is Roar, the 1998 GCI Woody that operates at Six Flags America. Roar actually has quite an interesting reputation because it seems that almost every single major coaster YouTuber that has ridden it absolutely despises it, and that lowers everyone's expectations, making everyone who hasn't ridden it chant RMC Roar every time the topic of Six Flags America is brought up, and I used to be one of those people. These haters of Roar say it's just an unbearably rough ride that's only enhanced by its poor layout and PTC trains. But then on the complete opposite side, almost every smaller coaster YouTuber that has ridden it, I've heard call it at least a decent ride. Those people say that if you ride in the front, it's really not that rough, and in the cold, it doesn't matter where you sit because Roar runs great in the cold. There's some crazy laterals, namely that strangely shaped enclosed turn, in addition to some decently sustained airtime. Roar is a ride that I have ridden, and in my opinion definitely falls on the side that it's a great ride. Surprisingly enough, Roar is actually the coaster that I have the most laps on in my life, and I ride it every time that I'm at the park. I think that caps off the park's superb top 5 and is unfairly judged because of its unfair reputation. And number 17 is Fahrenheit at Hershey Park. Fahrenheit is a 2008 6-inversion Intamin vertical lift coaster. It's really unlike any other Intamin coaster in the world, and that's likely a thing that contributes to a lot of people's opinions. That's a fantastic ride, or that's just alright. I've never really heard anyone that really dislikes the ride per se, but a large amount of people just find it to be quite average. Although the coasters are completely different, actually it's the same complaints as Zeus. People say that the ride is short, rough, or at least a little rattly, and has some pretty awful restraints. Let's start with that length. The ride is 2,700 feet long, and including the lift hill has just a 1 minute and 25 second duration. You might be surprised to hear the actual ride duration is about the same as Storm Runners. As for the rattle, I'm not sure how that would exactly hamper the ride experience, especially with the vest restraints, but it is a complaint of many riders. But even though it has vest restraints, they're some of the worst vest restraints in the industry. If you get stapled, they're going to be painfully digging into your shoulders the entire time. Fahrenheit fans, however, say that the layout is matched by very few rides, and that's hard to argue with. The Norwegian loop is one of only 3 in the world and provides some of the strangest sensations of any coaster elements. Plus, the second half might be even better than the first, with the 2 most whippy inversions in the park, followed by a perfectly shaped ejector hill into a 180-degree helix that gives some crushing positives. I definitely fall towards the latter opinion because of how much I love my unique rides. Taking the 16th spot is the Great American Screw Machine, love that name by the way, at Six Flags Over Georgia. This is once again a clash between people that don't mind and people that hate rough wooden roller coasters. From what I've heard, this ride is a bit of a rough one. I mean, it has been operated by Six Flags for almost 50 years, so what do you really expect? They have, however, been retracking large portions of the ride in recent years, so at least they've been working on it. I have also heard people gripe about how generic and boring the layout of the ride is, but that's actually what a lot of people love about it. It's the definition of a classic wooden roller coaster. It's just a simple out and back L-shaped layout that's almost nothing but airtime hill after airtime hill. And those airtime hills are praised quite a bit too. I can only imagine in my wildest dreams what buzz bars would be like going over all these hills. Number 15 is Great Bear, the 1998 4-inversion B&M inverted coaster at Hershey Park. It simply amazes me how much the ranking of this varies in comparison to other B&M inverts. You have some people, naming the people that haven't actually ridden it, claim it to be one of the worst B&M inverts. I mean, it can't be that good, can it? It only has 4 inversions. It has also been claimed that the second half of the ride is a bit lackluster, probably because of its proximity to Super Duper Looper, and the fact that it needs to weave its way around the ride, limiting what it can do. Then on the completely opposite end, there's the people that claim it to be a top tier invert. People like Alex Crump, who even claimed it to be the best one. They appreciate the ride because of its quirky layout, vast array of feelings and forces that it exerts upon you, and the wonderful scenery. When the ride is able to come so close to other rides, it creates amazing interaction, and Great Bear is pretty much sandwiched between Super Duper Looper, Skyrush, and Comet. Then finally, you have the people in the middle that say, yeah, it's pretty good. Great Bear is a ride that I have ridden, and I'm one of those lunatics that rank it as the best B&M invert. I'm a strange person, I know. At number 14 is ElToroRyan. I think that everyone here knows that ElToroRyan is a good ride. It's an RMC, and all RMCs are fantastic rides. The question that a lot of people disagree on though is just how good the ride is. You have people on one side saying that it's one of the worst, if not the worst coaster from RMC. This might be for multiple reasons. First of all, it's one of the shortest RMCs as the track length under 3,000 feet of track. That's pretty short when you factor in that it travels 68 miles per hour through that course. Secondly, some people complain about the ride being a little bit shaky. And I'm sorry, but I don't really get this one. Wooden coasters aren't supposed to be perfectly smooth, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe ElToroRyan is getting really rough or something. And finally, why I think that's one of the worst RMCs, the ride was built back in 2013, just 2 years after New Texas Giant, RMC's first coaster. They didn't have as much experience and therefore weren't able to make the ride as good as the rides that they're building today. There are, however, people that believe it to still be an upper tier RMC, and those people who appreciate the ride for its secluded setting. I mean seriously, that view from the top of the lift is absolutely insane. It has some of the best inversions on any RMC with the very unique overbanked inversion and double heartline roll finale. Number 13 is Disney California Adventures Incredicoaster. Incredicoaster is a ride that enthusiasts like to bash mainly because it's at a Disney park, and Disney parks are just so bad, you know. But anyway, people that complain about the ride say that it's just another boring Disney creation. The launch isn't too powerful, the drops are quite shallow, and there's only one version. It's just not a thrilling ride. This is also not to mention the fact how many mid-course brake runs and trim breaks there are throughout the ride, constantly slowing the train down and joining all the excitement from riders who already have to wait enough at traffic lights getting to the park. They shouldn't have to stop in the middle of the coaster. Plus, those same people also say that Incredibles overlay was just a cheap excuse of a new ride. That isn't how everyone feels, obviously. Other people enjoy the ride for its scenery, situated right next to a body of water and also right on top of the beautifully picturesque Pixar Pier. Plus, the way the ride is lit up at night creates a surreal atmosphere. This is also not to mention the fact that the ride is over 6,000 feet in track length and lasts 2 minutes and 36 seconds. When you're at a Disney park where you might have to wait a few hours for a ride, it's nice to just be able to sit back and enjoy your nice, long ride. I have to say that I side more with the opinion that it's not too bad, because I don't really care if a ride isn't intense if it makes up for it in fun factor, and that's exactly what Incredicoaster does. Taking the 12th spot is Ravine Flyer 2 at Waldameer. There are two types of people when it comes to Ravine Flyer. Those that call it underrated and those that call it overrated, and I can really see both sides. Let's start with the overrated. Those people start by talking about how bad the trains are for the ride. Ravine Flyer uses PTC restraints with the individual ratcheting lap bars, and if you've ever been in a couple PTC trains, you would know that the restraints tend to come down uncomfortably close during the ride, preventing you from getting maximum airtime. Second of all, there are a few trims throughout the ride, and everyone knows, trim bad, tearing structure apart good. And finally, Ravine Flyer 2 is not a very well paced ride. It absolutely flies through the first half, but after hitting the second half, you can see that it starts losing speed, and by the end, it's almost crawling. This probably comes down to the lack of experience that Gravity Group had back when this ride was built in 2008. There are, however, people that absolutely love the Ravine Flyer because, first of all, it's a wooden coaster. Enthusiasts love their wooden coasters. This is also known to be an incredibly smooth ride for a woodie. Plus, the ride also has some very interesting interactions with the road and goes out back to the woods in its very secluded setting. Rounding out the first part of the video are Juvenile Hypers. These pairs are very similar 85-mile-an-hour hyper twister coasters that tend to get a mixed response. Goliath at Six Flags Magic Mountain and Titan at Six Flags Over Texas. The general consensus is that Titan is better than Goliath, but I'm going to be putting them in the same spot because of how closely related they are. The one main complaint about these are their layouts. Both of them have very similar layouts that start with a quite shallow drop then into a bunch of turns that only really include one airtime moment in there before you hit the brakes. The lack of airtime is a big downside for a lot of people because that's what most people want in a hypercoaster. Plus, there's that mid-course brake run bringing trains to complete halt almost every single cycle, and there's nothing that you can do about it. This doesn't mean that everyone dislikes the ride, however. Those people can look past the problems and see the ride as the speed demon that it is, with some insanely intense moments, namely the upward helix on Titan. They also both feature quite long ride durations, which is enough for a lot of people, and it probably would be for me too. Thank you guys for watching this video. I should have part 2 coming out in the next few days, so stay tuned. I'll see you guys then.